Hello, my name is Kendra Gensch, and welcome to my podcast, Tractor Fields or City Lights. I am so glad you are here because today we are going to talk about small farming communities in Eastern Washington. If you are not from a rural area, you are probably surprised that a town could exist without a stoplight, or that it would take 4 hours to go to the city for an errand, or that you would need to spend $400 at Costco this Saturday because it would be about 4 more weeks until you see another one, and this food needs to last you all month. You may even be surprised that everyone knows you missed school last week. Like, are you okay? The volunteer ambulance can be here in about 30 minutes if they answer their on-call phone. These are among the many challenges unique to living in a small town. You may find it charming, you may find it frustrating, but many grew up this way and they're leaving it in the past. After observing many friends of friends, co-workers, and so on, I noticed so many of them moved from a small town farming community to more populated areas. And I wondered, is this a coincidence or a trend? Well, I'm very excited to reveal what I found. Over the next 20 minutes, I'm going to explore the lives of folks from Odessa, a small farming community in Eastern Washington. I will be highlighting their opinions on small towns and why they think so many young adults are leaving their area. Grab your boots and shovel. We are about to dig deep. Before I interviewed anybody, I did what any good researcher would do. Research. I came across a phenomenon called depopulation. This is defined as chronic population loss, and the counties affected will probably never recover to their highest population. So in 2019, more than 46% of remote or rural U.S. counties were experiencing depopulation. So where are these people going? Answer: the cities. According to an article from Rural Sociology, the population growth in metropolitan areas have been more than in rural areas since 1990. Evidently, this has been going on for quite some time. The question is why? Well, what better way to find out why than through someone who has done it? I sat down with Randy Walter. He's a 30-year-old man who walked away from a family business and 2,000 acres of farmland in Odessa, Washington. To give a little perspective on the size of this town, the 2020 census revealed that Odessa's population stands at 946 people. Randy moved from Odessa to the city of Spokane, Washington about 6 years ago. He had all the intentions of taking over the family business, which is a farm equipment dealership in Odessa. He went to college in Walla Walla, Washington for diesel mechanics. This is about a 2.5 hour drive away. Upon graduation, he lived in Odessa for about a year before deciding that he wanted a different life. Randy said he was just simply burnt out. It was not uncommon during harvest, which is the summertime, to be working every day of the week on either the farm or the dealership. He desired what he referred to as banker's hours, so he could have a proper work-life balance. He said the higher wages were also an attractive point to the big city. Evidently, Randy was not alone in this choice. 4 of his 13 high school classmates still live in or within about 30-mile radius of Odessa. So 70% of his classmates, they left the area completely. And I asked him why. First, he accredited it to going to college since there's not a post-secondary option nearby, and people often liked the new area they moved to. Apparently, this was a fear for some generational farming families. He recalled a friend who told him that he could go off to college or his family would give him $50,000 to stay home and farm. According to Randy, his friend still lives in Odessa today, 12 years later. This story brought up a challenge I had not originally considered. If one plans to leave the small town, how impossible would it feel to leave the family? Randy nodded, and he said that he's afraid that if he were to ever move back, he could never ever leave his family again. It was so difficult the first time. Randy also mentioned another reason he felt many of his classmates move away was because of job opportunity. According to Randy, unless you intend to pursue a farming-related job, there are hardly any other prospective jobs in the area. Here, the non-farming jobs are slim unless you're working for the school, the hospital, or a few shops in town. When I mentioned the U.S. Census Bureau statistic that 2/3 of Odessa's population is over the age of 45, Randy agreed that the town now feels like a retirement community because many younger people are not coming back once they graduate. Another contributing factor, I presumed, was that the opportunity to find a partner in these small towns would be quite a challenge. Based on the 22 census for Odessa, Washington, Randy's age group, which is 24 to 35 years old, which is what I would consider a prime time to settle down, it provides a whopping 62 people to choose from. Depending if you're interested in only one sex, and that at least, if not more, reduces that figure by half. Not to mention, if you were born in the small town, you would have to be careful as who you're related to as well. I told Randy the dating pool seems more like a small, trickling stream. He grinned and said, I would have never met my wife if I was still living in Odessa. That is so interesting to me. So we established a lot of younger people are moving out of Odessa, among many other small farming communities in eastern Washington. But what kind of effect does that have on the population that stays? The biggest problem is age disparity. The fact that more than 2/3 of the population is above the age of 45 means there is not enough people to replace the current workforce, to take care of the elderly, to even maintain the town's population. I wanted to hear from an individual who grew up in a small eastern Washington town and still lives there to this day. So I had a conversation with current resident Alex, who was born and raised in Odessa, Washington. He is 31 years old and a fourth-generation farmer. Alex has no plans of leaving Odessa because of all he has to inherit there. But it did not come without its challenges. Only 5 people Alex went to school with still live in Odessa, and they are all either farmers, ranchers, or farm support. He tends to keep up friendships with people from nearby towns, however, it makes it challenging to see them often. There were a few negatives to living in a small town that Alex could think of. He complained that groceries were difficult to find. He also said that errands can be a 4-hour affair if he has to go to the city to get them. He also mentioned that dating is hard. Once he found someone, he said they were never sure where to go on dates. Speaking of Alex's dates, Katie is Alex's fiance, and she is definitely an outlier in my research. She moved to Odessa from a bigger city a little over a year ago to be with Alex. The two met online, and Katie right away was attracted to the lifestyle Alex had in Odessa. The pair did not wait long before Katie moved to be with Alex. When asked what she loves about Odessa, Katie said she loves, quote, how much love is between parts of the community. We all look out for each other, end quote. She also said upon moving to Odessa how surprising she was that the community's money was run by the farming industry. Katie spends her days helping Alex on the farm. Just like any other employee, she is no stranger to running a tractor all day. I asked her if she wanted to pursue another career or if this was her dream. Katie simply responded, I wouldn't want to do anything else. Do you think that is why many younger people leave town in order to pursue what is not farming related? I asked her. And Katie said, absolutely. She said there is not much out there for people who don't want to be around farming. I think Randy also summarized this well when I had a similar conversation with him. He said, quote, farming drives the community. If the farmers have a bad year, the whole town has a bad year. I don't know about you, but I'm starting to see a bit of a trend here. For those younger people whose lives are farming, Odessa seems perfectly doable to live. But for those who are looking for opportunities beyond the farming lifestyle, there is not much the small town has to offer. In fact, according to an article titled The Demography of Rural America, farming and manufacturing counties are, quote, depopulating in far greater numbers than recreation or retirement destination communities, end quote. One of the likely causes of this is that the advancement of technology requires less farmhands, or factory workers for that matter, so less people are needed. That gives an explanation as to why Odessa is among one of the harder hit rural areas. But let's move on to an important term that describes this out-migration of people from rural areas. Have you ever heard of the term urbanization? You can define it simply as the increased population in cities. Pretty simple. But changes in social, economic, and political stances are the main reason urbanization is happening in the Western world. Many U.S. small towns that are not experiencing depopulation are becoming a part of metropolitan areas. They're becoming suburbs in a way. I think that's the easiest way to describe it. Therefore, it seems the most successful rural areas are the ones close enough to a city that the residents can still take advantage of the city's opportunities. Now, I can actually attest to this. I live near Spokane, Washington, which is the biggest city in eastern Washington, and the towns that surround the city appear to thrive much more than the ones I see further out towards Odessa. So what happens to these small towns that are not close enough to a city that can attach itself, such as Odessa? Well, it seems that people are moving to where the opportunity lies, just like Randy did. But this is not all black and white. There has been a recent shift in these small towns. The COVID pandemic created a lot of unprecedented outcomes. And I will say, I did not see this one coming. According to an article from the World Economic Forum, nearly 50% of Americans now say that they would prefer to live in a small town or rural area. This opinion is up about 9% from the previous study conducted in 2018. So that's just a few years ago. But since COVID, the remote work has become significantly more popular. Being able to work remote has given so many people the best of both worlds. They can keep their big city job and still be able to live wherever they want. With crime and housing costs rising significantly in bigger cities, it is logical that many Americans would like to trade in their small apartments for big backyards and still keep their big city wage remotely. I suppose only time will tell if this sudden influx is temporary or a new normal for small towns. However, going back to my interviews, Randy, Alex, and Katie all had something to say when I asked what they feel has changed in the town of Odessa. When Randy visits his hometown now, he said there appears to be more residents living below the poverty line. Especially in the last few years, he feels the town appears more run down than it used to. And he believes that the majority of new people that have moved to town did so for cheaper housing. Alex mentioned the same thing. He said that he used to be able to drive down Main Street and know who was in every single car. Now, he said, that has changed, and many people view Odessa as a low-income community. Katie also mentioned that the town has lost its sense of closeness, almost like the charm was lost for some people. You have to wonder, is cheaper housing a major reason for this sudden shift? All I know is that I don't see any for sale signs outside houses like I used to, Randy remarked. So there you have it. Small towns in eastern Washington are experiencing depopulation, but perhaps there's a new demographic on the horizon. I have to wonder what these small towns will stand to look like 10 years from now. Maybe the sudden influx will provide more support to the elderly. Maybe people can reignite that small town charm. Maybe there will be something else that entices residents to stay. Or maybe the town will just continue to struggle economically. Who knows? There's no way to tell what the future holds. But I cannot deny that whether people have left, have stayed, or have moved, the appreciation each of these people have for their small town remains very strong. I think Randy summarized it best. He said, "It's a different lifestyle for sure, but it's still my home." Thank you guys so much for listening, and thank you to my interviewers. You guys were so helpful. It was so awesome to bring a new set of opinions onto this issue that I don't feel like is talked about enough. So again, thank you guys all for listening in. Have a great rest of your day.